Good evening once again. This is Book Club Conversation Series 4, where we're chatting about The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. Of course, I'm Melina Lewis, and joining me prompt and efficiently is Janine Caesar. Hi, Janine.
Hi, Elena. Good night.
So we are here together again, chatting it out really.
Yeah.
Going over, we are on chapter 6. Can you imagine it? We are here, second to last
Listen,
chapter.
the
How has it
excitement.
been so far, Janine?
Listen, there was I don't even want to call it that, but that's what's coming to mind, a come to Jesus moment. My mind was blown with this one. This one was, yeah,
Yeah,
this one made me think differently of the way I do things and made me
yeah.
understand, further understand the way I do things.
So even as you talk about your mind being blown, tell me what are those things that stood out to you from chapter 6? Because of course, chapter 6 introduces a concept called the Einstein time, creating time for the full expression of your genius. What are those things that stood out to you the most?
I have always functioned a little bit differently to get what needs to be done. And this chapter for me explained why I function like that. I function under the Einstein time. Um, I usually, when I'm doing things, I like to, how do I put it? I like to think of, I take time to think about what needs to be done and the way it needs to be done and then do it. So I am not going to go into it just all haphazard. We need to walk, so let's just start to move. I need to know the direction. What is the destination? What do we do when we get there? I need to know all of that before I move. So for me, it was a little different in the thinking and the way that he explained it. I was like, oh, I didn't work on Newton's paradigm. I worked on Einstein time. So it resonated with me.
Yeah, I think for me, it really stood out, even in the very first paragraph, where he said, for your life to work harmoniously, you need to develop a harmonious relationship with time. And I never thought about it and specifically like that, using those words, having a relationship with time. And I thought it very interesting because when I started thinking about a relationship, I started thinking about time that is being invested, an approach, appreciating, caring for. Those are the kind of things that started coming to mind when I started thinking about a relationship. So then once I saw him introduce the whole idea of a relationship with time, it really caused me to soak it in and think, oh, so when I think about time now and going to another level, I'm thinking about caring in a deeper way about my time, having a deeper sense of appreciation concerning time and how I interact with it, how I use it, how I maximize it. And so I thought that to be food for thought. I thought that to definitely be food for thought.
I actually went back to the way the book that we read before, The Uncommon Dream,
Yeah.
when he said, try to assign a task to every hour. I
Yes.
did try it because it was a novel concept for me. I did try it. I tried and I thought, well, okay, maybe this could help me to get things done faster
Hmm.
and maximize my time, but it didn't work for me.
Right.
I did try it. It didn't work for me. I need to be, just as I said, I need to know the details and be inspired before I do actually start to work. So even today, when I tried the Einstein time thing, um, things just flowed a little bit easier. It
Right.
worked for me. It worked for me. I was like, this is what I need to be doing. Time little, because he also mentioned that time with a loved one, I can't remember the exact quote, but like time with a loved one, an hour spent with a loved one flies, whereas an hour spent, I can't remember what he compared it to. So let's say an hour in pain is going to be, oh. 5 minutes with a loved, sorry, an hour with a loved one seems like 5 minutes. Seems like an hour. And I was like, that is what I mean. I don't need that. I need to know what is going on for that time. So I won't feel it when I'm doing something that I know and I like and I have a passion and an intention for. Time flies. I work like that. So whether it be a hard task or not, once I know this is what I want to do, it's going to fly and I'm going to get things done.
Yeah, I thought it interesting for me. I think for me, the big takeaway was time management, but not from the ritualistic, traditional perspective.
Newtonian.
Yes,
Yeah.
but time management from the perspective that says you understand who you are, you understand what you're about, you understand how you function and flow, you understand what your priorities are, and you embrace every moment. And so that was super exciting for me because as I was reading, I was reflecting sometimes on maybe if I make a phone call, let's say I'm chatting with a colleague, and he or she might be like, "Oh my God, I'm so busy, I can't talk. I can just give you a half a minute, then I have to run." And sometimes some of those conversations feel so rushed, and I would observe it, find it interesting, and I would decide, well, you have your way, I have mine, because of course, as I was reading, I was discovering as well that I also am already operating in that sort of Einstein time where there's an ease of flow when it comes to time. I always have a
Yeah.
million and one things to do technically, but it's a lot easier in terms of the conceptualizing, negotiating to make it happen. And so it stood out because as I was reading it, Janine, I remembered how a comment I hear a couple people said to me was, Alina, you don't understand how fast you just move. And I'm like, how do I move fast? And they're like, no, you just move. You will come with an idea now and get it done 2 seconds after now.
That's true.
Like, I was like, really? I was like, I
Mm-hmm.
remember a colleague of mine say, you wouldn't understand because you live in it and that's your normal. But that's not normal for everybody else. Like you would realize you want to work on a project and you would just sit and before the people you want to collaborate with could make two turns, you shooting off, you getting it done, you putting
Mm-hmm.
everything in place. And I really think having read the chapter, it's because of that sort of Einstein philosophy that says you're tapping into your sense of self and understanding your relationship with time and how you flow best
Mm-hmm.
so that when you occupy spaces that are for you, and I believe even in this book, Janine, we spoke about that in one of the earlier chapters, when we started learning about like zone of competence, zone of excellence, zone of genius, we realized that when we don't operate in the things that are within our skill set, it becomes difficult.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard work. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
painstaking. And I think
Yeah.
ownership of time has to do with that as well. That it's not about lending yourself to the things that are outside of the zone of genius, but when we get into that zone of genius functioning as in our strength, in our fullness, it makes it so much
Mm-hmm.
easier then to honor time and to make
Because
time.
of your focus now.
Yes, and to make
Mm-hmm.
time for example, I it's easy for me to pick up the phone and call somebody and say, "Hey, how are you doing?" And I try to call different people, different times, different days. But one of the reasons why it's easy for me is because when I pour out positivity, I get back positivity. Positivity energizes me and it makes me feel
Mm-hmm.
like
It
I could
does.
conquer the world. So you find that what for some people might seem like a daunting task, as in, I don't have no time to check in with nobody, I don't have no time to send a message, I don't have time, quote unquote, what we talking about tonight.
Excuses.
Because I
Mm-hmm.
understand its value, I know when I make time for that, it energizes me. So it's really
No, but
interesting.
he also said too that the people use them as excuses
Yeah.
because he drew reference to the point where when a 4 year old child says, "Come and play with me," and you said, "No, I don't have time for that
Mhm.
now." But should that same 4 year old come and say, my foot is bleeding, you drop what you do and you're attentive, which means you do have the time. It means now that you're not taking that time to do that. You could have said, let me finish what I'm doing and then I'm going to come to you, because what he says that there's time for everything. You just need to be honest about what you allocating your time to.
Yeah. And the
I applied.
priority it
I,
has.
that's correct. I applied it today. I was like, okay, I even with a conversation with my mother this morning, and she said my mother has the concept when she doesn't mean it like that, but it comes across like that. Those wares to wash, but she means it in a way. Go and wash those wares now,
No.
right? And I said, well, mommy, I'm not twiddling my thumbs, but I will get to it. But I will get to it. And I thought when I read it, I was like, you could have do it. You just didn't want to do it at the point in time. So
That's
you tell
right.
your mother. So again, and as I said, I had my come to Jesus moment. Yes, that I was uh, convicted at that point. Like, what do you go on do what your mother tell you to do? So I applied it today, and it worked well. So the uncommon dream suggestion to apply the an action or activity to every hour, it didn't work for me. I was like, okay, go and do what your mother tell you to do. You have to cook. You have these things to sort out. You have your filing to do. You can get all that done. You can get all that done. Stop making excuses and get it
I
done.
think that our, I mean, I didn't, for me, when I think about apply an activity to every hour, I
Mhm.
don't, I think I do take it as literally, but not in the way maybe like traditionally we could consider it. I think sometimes maybe not you, right? But I know a lot of people when they create in their time slot, they create a time slot with a traditional mindset that says work hours is 8 to 4. So when they create a
Mhm.
time slot in your mind, you're thinking, I need to get up at a certain time. I need to do this, I need to do that, and then by 4 o'clock I'll do this. And so we come in sometimes with a traditional mindset. And I think for me, I have a combination both of a lot some the time something to do and have that Einstein mode where the difference for me is when I allot what. So for example, sometimes my allotted time for sleeping is in the middle of the day. That is when I allot my
Something can
time to
happen.
sleep, and that's
Mhm.
quite okay. Or, for example, I'm most probably not going to sleep much tonight. I'm going to do a night shift once we come off this live because I have some things that I want to do. So I've already prepared myself. My energy is high. I'm excited to go do work on my projects and so on. And so I have so whereas somebody else would just assume nighttime means sleep, and yes, we have the maybe the health arguments about what time we should go to bed by. But I'm just saying I allot my time based on my flow in Einstein time. So that
Yeah,
way
but I
my
understand
hours
that.
are meaningful. And it's not that, okay, it's daytime, so I have to, this hour I have to do, I don't have to do nothing in any particular hour. No, I'm not tying myself. I'm not putting that limitation because then I'm gonna get miserable. So there are some times when
But
my daytime is for sleeping or my daytime is for personal quiet time. Or like I was making a joke and I was telling a colleague of mine, I needed some personal time. So 10 o'clock was when I pulled out the oh gosh, what you call it, the pedicure footy thingy.
The first for, yeah. Yeah, correct.
Spa. Listen, 10
Mhm.
p.m. Pull it out and I started my
But
soak.
that's yours.
By midnight, I was polishing my nails. Listen, my hands were completely smudged by the next morning, but you know what? It's fine. It was the experience of me taking effort to care for me is what I wanted. And so that's the time I decided I'm going to do it. And so everybody has a different flow. I think where we get caught up is when we either trying to fit ourselves in a traditional box when that is not our natural flow, or maybe we're trying to compare ourselves to others and do things the way other people do it. I think that's where the problem comes in. You
But that's
cannot.
it, because I am not like you. So I am not going to function like you. I'm going to get the same things done,
Yep.
but I'm not going to
In
function like you. And I
your
think
way.
Yeah, a lot of people misunderstand that. And there's also a misunderstanding between sleep and rest. I could
Mm-hmm.
sleep, I could close my eyes and sleep
That's right.
between 10 p.m. and 8 a.m. and not feel rested. And I
Mm-hmm.
could sleep between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. and get up feeling like I'm ready to conquer the world.
Yes.
There's a difference between sleep and rest. And
Mm-hmm.
again, what is traditional may not always be what is right for you, and
Yeah.
it put limits upon you, which is going to take you away from functioning in your zone of genius, and
Yes.
you have to be aware and careful of that. So working in that Einstein time today, I saw it. I really saw it.
Yeah, because even in his writing, just a really short piece I highlighted where it says, "Take full ownership of time," and that for me was such an encouragement to go deeper with it. Take full ownership of time, because full ownership of time has to do with when we are allowed to do what, but it's also taking ownership of time that says this is a time that exists in terms of the traditional 24 hours. These are my priorities, and this is how I'm going to apply myself. So therefore, there are no excuses, there are no buts, there is no blame game. There's just me acknowledging and taking ownership that this is how I choose to apply myself. This is what I choose to do. And if something gets left out, I'm not going to blame it on, gosh, I didn't have enough time. No, I didn't take full ownership of my time to maximize and embrace the things I wanted to embrace. That's a choice we get to make in how we flow. And that was a green flag, like I like to call it. It's not a red flag, it's nothing negative, but it definitely was a green flag for me. Not just as a person, a woman, a wife, that kind of thing. But as even as a business owner, take ownership of time. How often do we as business owners complain, oh my God, I wish I had more time, I wish I had more time? Whereas if you pull back and we look at it through different lenses and look at the decisions we're making, we'll realize it's not so much that we're running out of time, we've just not taken ownership of time. So
I
that's
thought
a
of
green
it.
flag for me.
I thought of it a little, well, just a slightly differently. When he said when he taken ownership of time, I thought, what about the concept of saying time is mine?
Yes.
It because he spoke about it. It is in you. It flows from you. So that brought me to thinking, well, if time is mine, then I can do what I want
Yeah.
and still get things done.
Yeah.
So yeah, I worked in that today, and every time I thought, oh gosh, what's the time? Am I too late? Is things happening? And I just stopped myself. I said, time is mine, and I stopped worrying about it, and things fell into place. I was like,
Yeah.
I can work with this. I can work
Yeah.
with this.
And you know what
That time is
supports
mine
it
is something I
too?
need to say every day.
Yeah. And what supports it too, he mentioned part of growing up is understanding the things that do not contribute to our happiness and success in life. And for
Hmm.
me, I paired that with the whole idea of taking ownership of time, because I believe that in many regards, the things that suck and drain us of time usually are the things that they're not contributing to that happiness, success, zone of genius, good flow. Because when we're operating in our greatness, operating really just unpacking the seeds that are inside of us, I don't think we just complain too much about time. We are just, you get into
Mm-mm.
it, you embrace it, you enjoy it, you max it out. And just,
In
again,
five
taking that
minutes and an
ownership
hour
of
too.
time. Time is mine, but it's what we choose to do with it. And I think that's like the big deal, the big takeaway from this chapter. We must take accountability and responsibility, as Gay Hendricks says, take ownership of time. And I found that to be very liberating, that green
The
flag
only
reminder.
thing, the only thing that I worry, well, not worry, but it was at the back of my mind. And yes, we may come to the realization that there's time for everything to get things done. There's so many others that still use the Newtonian paradigm that insists that it can only be done within X hour and Y hour. They can't see that it can be done. Um, it can be done within those hours, or just a little before, or just a little after, but it can be done, and it's going to get the same effect that we both want. So I sat back and I thought of that, and I was like, wow. Let's just say, okay, today I made a meal, I cooked a meal. Because I didn't cook the meal between 10 o'clock and 12 o'clock, does it mean that, and I finished my meal at 1 o'clock, does it mean that you're not fed? Does it mean, what is the difference? What is the difference? Because I'm not going to, well, I'm not going to leave you hungry for sure. I might give you a snack in between. Me not giving you that meal at that time doesn't really it doesn't really affect anything. So I know it's a little off the my
It's actually
explanation.
not off, it's actually in alignment with what he talked about next when he talked about stress and conflict being caused by resisting acceptance and ownership. And I think that acceptance and ownership as well has to do with our own perception. You remember he spoke about personas and the way we take on and the belief systems that we carry. And he also spoke about the importance when we're collaborating to understand that it at some point it's not only about you. It's easy to talk about taking ownership and making time yours when we're talking about things that pertain to us in our space by ourselves. But then when we start collaborating with others, working with others, we have to be
Because of
aware.
that.
We have to be aware of how we function with them and how we could negotiate common ground. But I think, and it takes you back, Janine, to where we did book club conversations on the uncommon dream, where oh, his name just slipped me for a minute. Is it Mike Murdoch? I think it is.
Yes, correct. Mike
Where
Murdoch.
Mike Murdoch, one of the things he talked about is the importance of aligning yourself with like-minded people and people that are on a similar path. And so when I think about Mike Murdoch, it brings me back to even the example you're giving, and it's not as clear cut as we make it seem in this
Mm-hmm.
conversation, but the
Mm-hmm.
principle is there that says if we're talking projects, business, professionalism, we do want to try as far as we can to align ourselves to choose more and more as we continue along the professional and entrepreneurial journey to connect, align, collaborate with like minded individuals. So, like minded, not just literally in the thought process, but that vision, how we operate, the
Yeah.
way we handle things, so that there is that synergetic flow and it's easy. And I think that that's one part of it. And then on another part, there's the place for negotiation to understand everybody not like you, everybody not like me.
Mhm.
So where there
That's
are
right.
those differences, take ownership of the areas that we are responsible for and find common ground. Because it's
That's
not
correct.
about worrying about the right way and the best way. Because everybody, even when we talk about the Einstein time, everybody I think will experience Einstein time differently because we are different. The way we embrace our version of Einstein time, but when we are open to have clear communication, as Mike Murdoch in the Uncommon Dream spoke about, and we're willing to be honest in our communication, open ourselves, and to be vulnerable to say, hey, these are my thoughts, these are my considerations. I really believe it opens ground to move forward.
Another thing he spoke about that made me think, when you in the Newtonian paradigm, and you're being rushed and being forced to function outside of your zone of genius. He spoke about the pressure, and I always felt like something was closing in on me, and when I function like that, versus when I use the Einstein time, and I felt the freedom, and I felt the ideas and the things flow through me, and I got things done. I felt that it's that pressure again. When you have that pressure too, it's going to put a strain on your health as well.
That's right.
And how effective will you really be if you're going to be functioning in that sense of urgency all of the time. And he spoke, Gay Hendricks spoke about how difficult it was for him to actually undo that as well, because he said he was the kind of person that um, I am always, he when he retired, he was bored out of his mind because he always felt the urgency to do something. And I'm thinking, I cannot tell you when last I felt bored, because because I'm always doing something, not always with a sense of urgency that I need to get it done now, but I always have the what's next principle in my mind. So I'm never bored. Even if I do get some leisure time, I pick up a book. I was like,
Yeah.
when do you get time to be bored? It means that you're not doing something that you're not thinking of something that I can't even describe it now.
I understand what you mean, and I think it taps in what you're talking about. Too taps into the principle that says if you do what you love, you will never work a day in your life. And
Yeah,
while I don't fancy the phrasing, what I would say is that work will not be difficult.
that's correct.
It's
It's
not
you
going
don't
to be
feel it.
draining. It's going to be a positive experience, because for the projects that I work with, it takes, in my mind, I can acknowledge that it takes a lot. In
But
my
you love working on
energy,
it.
I don't feel it. But
Yeah.
my brain understands I do a lot.
The brain understands that
The
you're
brain
working, but
understands it,
because you
the
like
logic.
it,
Yeah, the
yeah,
brain
you go back
understands
in
the
it.
logic. But because I am so grateful, Janine, when I tell you I love everything that I do. I don't remember if it's this book or Uncommon Dream, but one of them talked about growing into a place where you love what you do. And it guided us through acknowledging the things that you do that you don't enjoy, you don't love. I don't remember if it's earlier in this book
This
or
book, it's
it was
this book,
this
yeah.
one. And I remember reading that, and I had such a deep sense of gratitude. I don't do anything that I don't love. Everything I do, as divergent as sometimes the projects may seem, I love everything I do. I have to apply
I,
wisdom when it comes to the timing and what I do when. But when I tell you, I get up every day happy to do what I do. I am beaming on the inside. I mean, there might be a time where I might feel a little sleepy, like, oh, I wish I could sleep a bit more, but I have some commitments to fulfill. But outside of that, there is not one day in so many years that I can't count, but so many, many years that I have not had to get up and say, oh, God, I had to go to work today. And I am so great, Janine, when I tell you I'm grateful. I'm not saying life is perfect, but when I tell you I am so grateful that that could be my story. And it could be everybody's story because you don't have to be an entrepreneur for that to be a story. You just have to do what you
mm-hmm,
love. And
mm-hmm.
you enjoy it and you make the most and you become your best when you're doing that thing and you
So,
glow.
you know what I thought about as you're speaking?
What's
I
that?
am not, because I'm asthmatic. I don't like sweeping, right, and dusting and all of that. Excuse me, I'm even thinking about it. I'm feeling my throat going dry. I don't like it, but but the thought afterwards of how clean the place is going to be, how nice it's going to smell. Um, it gives me a little bit of drive. And then I am the kind of person, for me, soca is cleaning music. So I get through what I don't like with something that I do like. And as
Yes.
soon as I finish cleaning, off comes the music and I sit back and I relax and I do what it is I like to do even more. So there's that thinking, and yeah, even though there may be one or two things you don't like, there is something within you that can cause that to be not a burden.
That is
So
correct.
me living me
Because in life we
sleeping
have
and dusting to soca,
responsibilities.
yeah,
In life
yeah.
we have responsibilities. So everything is not going to be an absolute joy. It's like I think a couple weeks ago, I was telling a story about how I hate to wash wares. But see me, listen. I did some extra cleaning, and see me, I was like a good hour and a half in, just washing all kind of thing, because I did some deep cleaning. So just doing some extra stuff. But you know what? There, as much as the task I don't like, I enjoyed it. You know why? Because it falls part of a bigger goal. I wanted to do a particular set
Yeah.
of cleaning. And so again, it's, I think sometimes, um, again, the traditional mindset when it comes to joy and happiness in what we do tries to mislead us by having us think we must absolutely be in love with every minuscule thing that is a part of our day. And if
Yeah,
we do
that's
it, we shouldn't do it. No, there's some things that it's just a part of being an adult that you have to do. But
that needs to
because
be
you
done. Yes.
understand it feeds into a larger vision or a larger goal, even though it's not your thing, you enjoy it nevertheless. And I think that's a big takeaway there.
It's like a delayed gratification. So you're
Yes.
getting through this still like that.
Yes. So I know we're going to close now, Janine, but before we close, my question to you is, now that we only have one more chapter to go, at the beginning, you had a bit of trepidation about the big leap. How are you feeling now at this stage in the reading? It took much conversations for you to decide to do.
To take.
Do the book.
Um,
So how is it for you? One chapter to go again.
I am, what's the word? Just as you said, grateful because it has made me function just a little bit differently. Knowing that I know I have work to do, but free my mind to think that you need to start to function into your zone of genius. You're fighting it, just reading this book alone um, is taking you to your zone of genius. You like to read one, and this book is opening doors and worlds and thinking for you. Why are you fighting it? Why are you fighting it? So I was like,
Well, I mean,
okay, okay.
it's a
I
pleasure
like
once again collaborating with you on another book club project. And
being
hopefully
here.
next week, being the last chapter, we'll have all the ladies back in our virtual studio with us again to be able to continue the conversation. So Janine, and to those looking like, hey, it was nice having you look on. We hope the conversations are inspiring. And Janine, of course, I'll see you next week Thursday, same time for our closing discussion.
Yeah,
The big
yeah.
leap.
Thanks
Thank
for
you. Thank
making me
you.
read it.
Yes. Have a good one.
Bye.
It really is a great process.